I've never loved chickens more than I love the Silkies. They're so cute, oh my God. Thing 1 and Thing 2, the newest addition to our chicken family. I just want to pick them up and squeeze them. They have the feet of a Clydesdale, the head of an alpaca, the body of a rabbit. They're my favorite thing in the whole world. Come here, come here.
Just wanted you to know I'd like to ask a question. Something's bugging me, been on my mind. Sure be great if you clarify.
Hey everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. We are outside of my cabin in the Hudson Valley. I was just tending to the chickens. I got a couple eggs. And today I'm here to answer more of your questions. So we're back with another episode of Claire-ified. So all of your burning baking questions that you sent in, I'm here to answer today. Rahul Mooli. I would honestly love to know more about your process of recipe development. How do you start? Where do you start? How many batches do you make? Do you taste all of them? What do you do with so much food? How do you not get bored of trying the same dish again and again? So many questions. All great questions. I'll go in reverse order. Yes, sometimes I get tired of tasting the same thing, so I often rely on people around me to kind of give me their feedback, because just after a while, it's hard to distinguish, like, is this thing any good anymore? In general, the idea comes from like a flavor combination, something that is some sort of hit of inspiration that I get from somewhere. Sometimes it's like a taste memory. That's a really fruitful starting point for me often. And then I often use a recipe as a reference. So I'm at the point in my career where I've developed so many recipes that often I can go back to an earlier recipe of mine and use it as a jumping off point and make some modifications. So I think rarely does someone start from like zero and just make up the ingredients of a cake, you know, pulled out of thin air. And I test it minimum probably 3 times. Sometimes it can go many more than that. The first test is really important because that's when I get proof of concept, and then I just tweak it until I like where it is. And I just remembered that Vinny told me to answer these faster. Oops, I'll do better on the next ones. I just want to pet you. So this next question is from Susan. Any tips for baking when you are not able to smell? This one's tough because so much of baking is sensory, and smell plays a big role in like determining when something is done. Or if something is like baked too long or something. But to me, it's really crucial just in that moment of like determining doneness, and you smell, you know, toasty flour, you smell melted chocolate, that kind of thing. So you just have to rely a lot more on the visual cues and on touch. I think learning touch can be a good replacement for smell. You can poke at a cake, you can tap the edge of a cookie. That is gonna help you a lot. You can like thump on the bottom of a loaf of bread to see if it sounds hollow. So that's probably, I think people could really hone touch more as a means of sort of engaging with the baking process. I just made that up. I don't know if that's, who knows? I don't know, Susan. I made that up. Okay, so from Julia. What are the advantages to baking in glass, ceramic, or aluminum pans, and how do you know when to use them? Great question. For the most part, when you're baking cakes or really anything, you almost always want to go with metal, specifically aluminum, and more specifically anodized aluminum. It heats up quickly and cools down quickly. It heats evenly, things bake evenly, and don't use nonstick. That's really kind of the rule of thumb for most baking. For me, I really only use glass for pie. Glass takes a long time to heat up and cool down, and so what happens when you bake things like brownies or cakes in glass is the outsides overcook, the center stays kind of underdone, so you end up with a done cake, but that's burnt around the edges, so not ideal. It's great for pie because you can gauge browning of the crust, so that's really the only time I use it. And ceramic I mostly use for like when I'm in a baking dish for a crisp or a crumble or something like that, but you can also bake pies in ceramic. So anything that's cake-like, I do in metal, anodized aluminum. Tips for transporting a cake. I have been there. I've been in the backs of Ubers, on the subway, walking down the street. I've seen it all. So I recommend getting a designated cake box. Sometimes that's convenient when you're going somewhere and you don't want to have to like drag a whole cake carrier back with you. So it's really, really important to have a cake box of the size of your cake with a cardboard cake round underneath your cake for transporting in and out. And then just try to find a bag with a very flat bottom, a wide flat bottom for transporting. If you're transporting a lot of cakes, think about a cake carrier. But if it's like once in a while kind of thing, just invest in maybe a dozen cake boxes and you'll be, I think, really happy that you did. They're taking a bit of a laycation because it's like molting season or whatever. So actually, let's see if we have any eggs. Oh! Nice little chicken fence so they can more or less free range, which they're very happy about. We got our eggs. Our eggs is. So this next one is from Brenna. It says, clarified question. How do you stay organized and keep things neat while baking? Mise en place is great until you end up with a whole extra load of dishes. Any tips for staying organized and cleaning as you go when space and cute little containers are limited? So when I'm on Dessert Person and we're shooting video, I have everything measured out and ready to go. But when I'm baking at home and recipe testing, not necessarily always that organized and methodical. So I have a dishwasher that makes it a lot easier and takes the load off when it comes to dishes a little bit. But in general, I try to do one thing at a time. I invest in deli containers and I always save them when I get them from takeout or something. And to me, those are really convenient mise en place containers. I don't use cute dishes in the videos. I use what I have. And I try to really stay focused on the recipe and do a precise order of operations to keep myself focused. What are some tips for making your kitchen more environmentally friendly? How do you reduce plastic waste but still keep things fresh? Also, I love using a piping bag, but all of the reusable ones I've tried break after one use. Yes, I feel like I am on a journey toward more sustainable baking and just general practices in my kitchen. So I've replaced a lot of plastic wrap and plastic bags and foil with reusable containers. I really like, this is not sponsored, but I like this brand called Stasher. They make these silicone bags that come in different sizes. They're kind of expensive, but the idea is that you never need a Ziploc bag, so you can reuse them. Those are really great. Instead of parchment paper, I often use silicone baking mats because those are reusable and serve a bunch of different purposes. There are certain things where I haven't found a great replacement for foil or plastic wrap, and sometimes I have to use it, but I always reuse the pieces. So what you don't see on video is like my plastic wrap that I have draped over things that I washed that's drying, or the sheets of foil that I washed and I'm gonna reuse. So I just try to reuse everything as much as I possibly can if it's more of a single-use item. For pastry bags, they do make like an oiled, I think it's fabric. It's like for pastry bags, they make like an oiled canvas material, or that's wax in the interior, and those are great. They're reusable, they don't break, they're really sturdy, so that's a good tip for those. Also, bowl covers. Silicone bowl covers that stretch and can be tightly, oh my God, the brioche is still in the oven. Oh my God, hold on. I have to go take it out. Oh no. Oh no, Archie, get the oven. Oh my God, how long have we been out here? No. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's okay. It's a little dark, but it's fine. Oh my God. What was that last question about staying organized in the kitchen? Always set your timers. Anna writes, in your cookbook, a lot of the recipes call for extra egg yolks. Do you have any suggestions for what to do with the egg white that's left over? I very often have a container of egg whites sitting in my fridge. For that reason, if I'm making pastry cream or lemon curd that's only yolks, I have a leftover glut of whites. Sometimes I make meringue and incorporate it into a dessert, but very often I don't want to go that route. And so I often incorporate it into like a frittata. So I might crack 2 whole eggs and beat in some egg whites, and I have sort of a like higher protein frittata. You can use it to make like Spanish tortilla, one of my favorite dishes of all times. Sometimes if you're making lemon curd, you can make like a meringue to serve with it, and then you're using the components entirely but separately. But more often than not, it's just going into an egg dish. Do you have any tips in baking time adjustments for electric versus gas oven? I would say that it's not even necessarily a gas versus electric thing. There's other variables about your oven that might make the bake times different. It's about how air circulates, the dimensions. What I would really encourage people to do is to sort of hone their abilities of determining when something is done and to use the bake times as just guidelines. So if your cake is underdone, learn what an underdone cake looks like and then know that you have to just bake it longer. So do all the tests, the visual tests, the, pressing down in the center, the cake tester, use, your sense of smell, all of that to determine doneness and just sort of rely less on the bake times in cookbooks. And you can even start testing for doneness earlier if you've noticed that often your oven goes faster than the times quoted. So it's really just about, I think, developing your own sense of how your oven works and how, when things are done, so that you don't even have to rely on the times in a cookbook. Heather Counselor writes, would love a bread baking Q&A. So much I would love to learn from all of the questions. So let us know what you think. I'll pin a comment and then let us know all your bread questions and we can save it for a future episode of Claire-ified. So there's so much to get into with bread and it's even hard to know where to start. So let us know all of your burning bread questions and we'll make an episode about it. My oven temp drops whenever I put something inside. What should I do? So there's a couple things. One, just know that happens to everyone. So your oven, if you preheat to 350, you open up, put a cake inside, it's not going to be 350 when you close the door. Depending on how long you have it open, it could drop 25 degrees, maybe more. So that's normal. So like recipe cook times account for that. So there's not necessarily something that you have to do. If you're very concerned about it, or if you feel like the door has to stay open for a long time for various reasons, you can preheat your oven to 25 degrees higher than the bake time in the recipe and then immediately turn it down when something goes into the oven. So for a 350 oven, preheat to 375, and when something goes in, turn it down to 350. And that should account for the fluctuation in temp. But just know that that's normal. Last question from Lil Me 1193. I see we are on season 5, but what makes a season a season? I do not know the answer. Vinny? What's the answer?
Just felt like it.
Just felt like it. What makes a season is how many episodes we shoot at a time. And then Vinny calls it a season.
There's multiple seasons in a year, so
Right.
there might not be 6, but there's more than one.
Right. Thank you for all your questions. Is that okay? All right. All right. Okay. Thank you for all your questions. We really do read all the comments and we collect them to answer in an episode of Claire-ified. So anything you've always wanted to know about baking or cooking, maybe possible bread episode coming up, let us know. We are happy to answer them on the next episode of Claire-ified. So thank you for watching and like and subscribe.
Cut! Come on, girl.
You gotta commit to one, You got her, Harris. You got her.
Got her.